What is up, everybody? So in this episode of the Modern Shed Build series, we're going to be talking about a few of the most common shed foundation options so that you have a sturdy base to build your shed upon. Let's get into it. So here's a look at my old shed, and I got lucky because there's already a 10 by 10 concrete slab beneath it. So all we had to do was demolish our old shed so we could build our new one. For those who like demolition, here's a 10-second time lapse of the demo process. So after demolishing the old shed, we were left with this 10 by 10 concrete slab, which after inspection looked to be in really good shape. So after a quick power wash, we were basically all ready to start building our new shed. Now, although I was fortunate to have an existing slab, I understand that most of you are going to be building your new shed foundation from scratch. So I wanted to talk about two of the most common shed foundation options, which are the concrete slab like I had and the gravel shed foundation, which a lot of people also use. We'll also brush over a few of the less common but still acceptable shed foundation options, but let's get into it. Although I've never poured a concrete shed foundation, I have extended a concrete patio and the steps are pretty similar. So basically, for all of these concrete foundations, you're gonna have a gravel layer, which is usually 3 to 6 inches, and then a concrete slab layer on top, which can be anywhere from 4 to 6 inches. You're also gonna wanna reinforce that slab with either mesh or rebar, but we'll talk more about reinforcement in a minute. One other thing to note is that some people will also install a vapor and moisture barrier before they put in any gravel or anything, so something to think about when planning for your concrete slab. So the first thing you want to do is plan your layout, and for a 10 by 10 slab like we had, I would recommend excavating an 11 by 11 foot square so you have a little bit of room to install the forms. After excavating around 8 inches for 4 inches of gravel and 4 inches of concrete, you're going to compact the soil and then grab some 57 stone for the 4 inches of gravel subbase. After we got all of the gravel into the excavated area, we then compacted that similar to how we did for the soil. Next, you're going to need to actually assemble the forms for your concrete slab. Here we're using 1x6s and we're anchoring them with stakes, and basically this is going to make the outline and perimeter for your slab. In our case, it would be a 10 by 10 perimeter form. Use a level to make sure that your forms are level all the way across. If you have a large slab, you might want to think about doing something with drainage, maybe crown the slab, but in our case, it's not a big deal since we are going to have that covered by a shed, obviously. Now for this patio extension, we use steel mesh as reinforcement, and if I was doing a 10 by 10 slab, I would probably do the steel mesh again. Since it's a small surface area, I think rebar might be overkill. But do your own research and use reinforcement as you find it necessary. Now in terms of the actual concrete, you can do a dry mix with bags, or you can have it delivered. I use this concrete calculator to determine if you had a 10 by 10 slab, which is 100 square feet, at 4 inches, you would need roughly 56 bags of 80-pound concrete mix. So for my patio extension, I actually did mix my concrete by hand, and it was right around 85 bags. It was a lot of work. We rented this mixer, and although you can do it, it is very labor intensive, and it was a lot of work. So I think I would recommend, if you are going to go this route in building your own concrete slab for your shed, to have it delivered by a concrete truck. But in our case, we did it by hand, so we continued to dump the concrete mix until we filled up the entire form area. Then at that point, you're going to use a piece of lumber or similar to screed the top surface and add in any additional concrete to fill in holes. And then once you've screeded it off and gotten it roughly level, you're going to take a bull float and a hand trowel to finish the concrete surface and make sure that it's perfectly smooth all the way across. An optional step is to use an edging trowel to give you rounded corners around the perimeter of the slab. Now, I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on building a concrete shed foundation because I'm not. So in the description, I'm going to link a few videos that I think explain the process really well if you do want to go with the concrete slab for your shed foundation. Now that we've talked about the concrete slab option for a foundation, let's talk about the gravel shed foundation, which is also very common. So for your gravel shed foundation, you want to plan out exactly where you're going to position it in your yard. You want to pick a spot that's relatively flat so you're not dealing with a big slope, and you also want to find a place that has good drainage. Now to construct a gravel shed foundation, you're essentially going to create a border with 4x4, 4x6, or 6x6 pressure treated lumber. It needs to be pressure treated because it will be exposed to moisture over the lifetime of the shed. So basically you're just going to create a frame and then fill up the inside of that frame with a minimum of 4 inches of gravel. Another rule of thumb is you want to have your gravel shed foundation about 2 foot wider than the actual shed. So here we have a 10 by 10 foot shed, so you want to have a 12 by 12 foot gravel foundation so that you have sufficient support for the shed. So after building the frame, checking to make sure it's level, and securing all the pieces together, you're going to want to install a geotextile fabric at the base of the shed foundation. Then you're going to grab some 57 stone and install it on top of that. So it goes earth, geotextile fabric, and then 57 stone on top of that. So you're going to continue to fill up the gravel shed foundation base with as much 57 stone as it takes to get a minimum of 4 inches all the way across. After getting your stone level, do some compaction, and then you're ready to install the shed. Now, just like for the concrete slab foundation, I'm not an expert on the gravel shed foundation either, so I'm going to leave a link down below for a video that goes through the entire gravel shed base construction process, step by step. Now, although the concrete slab and the gravel shed foundation are the most common and, in my opinion, the most reliable of the shed foundations, there are a few others that are a little less common that we'll go into here in a very brief kind of way. So first, let's talk about the concrete deck blocks and also the plastic deck blocks that you've probably seen people build small sheds upon. So basically, you would just kind of take your 2x4 or 2x6 lumber and you would insert it into these blocks, and you would basically just create the frame, put a few intermediate members in between, and then you could build your shed upon them. These are okay, they're not the best option, but they are feasible for small sheds where you don't really care too much and there's a little bit of settling over time. There's also some people who would just build a shed on top of literally some pavers they put down, and then they'll build the shed base directly on top of those. And these last 3 options you're seeing here are very uncommon, so I'm not going to cover those in the video. So check those out on your own if you're interested in those alternate shed foundation options. Fortunately for me, I had an existing concrete shed foundation, so in the next video, I'm going to show you how I built the shed base, and I'm also going to show you how I framed the shed walls in the video after that. If you want to learn exactly how I built this modern shed, you can click the link down in the description. But that's all for me. I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks for watching.